Welcome back to Getting Automated, and today we're going to go over how to automate the extraction of data from documents that you have. This is a problem that just about every single one of my clients faces, and there's a number of reasons why they face it, but at the end of the day, a lot of times documents are sent to customers of mine that have useful information in them, but the data never makes it out of that actual document. It ends up getting lost in an attachment in an email somewhere and just isn't that useful for them. And so for common document types that they want to go ahead and extract information out of, think maybe resumes, think invoices, maybe shipping labels, really anything with the structured syntax, we can go ahead and automate that really easily. And the reason we want to do that is exactly for what I'm showing here. It's not only resource intensive, it's boring, it's manual, it's error prone, and ultimately can cost a business a lot of money, either A, if they misrecord the data that needed to be extracted from a document, or B, just miss the data entirely. And so I built out a really simple workflow today that I'm going to go ahead and demo and kind of show you how this all works end to end. You can modify it for your own business needs. So here's what to expect. You can see the workflow below, but basically I've built out a workflow in n8n that goes ahead and handles a couple different data types, and you can either manually trigger it or you can go ahead and have it triggered by when you drop a file into your file hosting service, such as Google Drive, and it will go ahead and use either OpenAI or n8n's built-in document parsing abilities to go ahead and identify the actual document type, as well as extract the key data from that document and write it to Google Sheets or your tool of choice. And so we'll go ahead and we'll demo that in just a second. But as a whole, we really wanted to make this flexible and something that's adaptable for you and your business in the data that you need to go ahead and extract. So as a quick aside, I'm Hunter Sneed, the creator of Getting Automated and Workflows. The whole goal with Getting Automated is to provide automation educational resources for small and medium-sized businesses that are looking to either introduce or advance their automation usage within their business. A lot of times automation can be a major unlock to helping you grow and scale your business. And so the whole purpose of this is to go ahead and provide you the resources to be able to learn, to be able to do this, and to actually enable you and your business to continue to grow. One last thing I do want to say though, is I also run Workflowsy. Workflowsy is a business consulting automation service business. And essentially what that is that provides the automation services for businesses that don't want to go ahead and have to build this stuff out themselves. So let's talk about the magic behind the scenes with this. There's a couple things in play. Really the main one is n8n. n8n is the automation orchestration engine here, and that is what is going to allow you to build out the workflow and connect all the services together. I bet you many of you are familiar with n8n, but for those who aren't, go ahead and check it out. It's comparable to Make or Zapier, but I think it's a whole lot more powerful and flexible and really a great fit for this specific use case. Beyond that, we've got OpenAI. OpenAI, we're using a couple different technologies from them today. We're using their vision input. We're also using structured outputs. I'll go over both of those in just a little bit, but OpenAI is really empowering us to be able to do this in a way that was much more difficult to do before. And then from there, the schemas, I talked about the structured output. That ties really nicely into the schema, so that way we get a really structured output every single time. So let's go ahead and keep moving. All right. So basically what happens in this workflow is we do a couple things. We go ahead and we detect what type of document is being passed in. And so for this, I focused on PDFs. You can focus on different document types, but PDFs was one that I find is traditionally kind of difficult to extract data out of. And so I wanted to focus the video on that today. And so what it will do is it'll detect not only the document type, but also when a document is actually added to your file hosting service. In my case, we're using Google Drive, but it could be OneDrive, it could be Dropbox, really could be anything. Then from there, what it does is it goes ahead and it classifies what's in the document. So a lot of times you're going to have different extraction functionality and different stuff that you expect out of various documents, depending on what the document type is. So what you would expect to extract out of a resume versus an invoice versus say a shipping label are all going to be very different. And so with this, what we're looking to do is to go ahead and identify what is the document type, and then that modifies the instructions that we pass to OpenAI to actually go ahead and perform the extraction. So it's classifying it, then it's extracting it. Extracting it is exactly what it sounds like. We go ahead and we take the contents of the document, we map it to our structured output that we expect, and then we go ahead and we can go ahead and actually use that to then put into some sort of kind of document storage system like a Google Drive, specifically Google Sheets, so that way we can aggregate all of that data in one place. It makes it a lot easier for us to actually go ahead and then use that going forward. So detect, classify, extract, organize. That's kind of the 4 steps that we break it down into for something like this. So let's talk about structured outputs for a second. Structured outputs is a feature within OpenAI, and a bunch of other AI or providers are starting to provide this as well. It's commonly referred to as also JSON mode. JSON mode and structured outputs are a little bit different in OpenAI's case, but let's just focus on structured output for now. So traditionally, when LLMs first came out, a lot of times you would get an answer back, but you couldn't define the structure that it needed to be in, or if you did define the structure that it needed to be in, the structure was not consistent. And so it made it hard to go ahead and take kind of non-deterministic, or really in simpler terms, unpredictable output, and go ahead and map that to something else that's going to programmatically take that data that was outputted and do something with it. And so the whole idea with structured outputs is that you're able to provide a schema, basically kind of a structure that you expect the data to be outputted in, that you provide to OpenAI, and then it will go ahead and take your information in that can be unstructured. In our case, it could be a PDF file, or really a JPEG, a PDF converted to a JPEG that we then pass in. And it will go ahead and extract that information for us, and it will go ahead and then put it out in that structured output that we can then go and use to go ahead and pass to something like Google Drive or Google Sheets. And so basically you take the raw input in, you go ahead and you provide the schema at the time that you're also making that call to OpenAI, and then it gives you the output you expect. And so I'll go over kind of what that looks like. I've actually made a custom GPT to go ahead and help you with that. And so, yeah, basically it allows you to define different schemas for different kind of outputs. Again, you're going to have a different schema for each different document type because you expect different data out of those. All right, so I've got structured outputs here on my screen. So structured outputs, again, as I was saying, is a feature from OpenAI. And essentially what it allows us to do is it allows us to dictate what the JSON schema is that we want to go ahead and get the output in. There's different ways to do this. They offer ways through their SDK to do this using their Python and Node.js SDK. But they also have a schema through their curl interface as well that allows us to do this. And so to go ahead and say structured data extraction, and within this, we go ahead and we define, like this is a research paper extraction, and it talks about the title, the authors, the types, keywords, all sorts of stuff. And so it'll go ahead and define the schema that's allowed, and it has this link out to supported schemas that goes down here and kind of tells you what to expect. But basically what you do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to take the document type that you want to go ahead and extract data from, and you are going to then go and actually take that and include that in your OpenAI API call. And this will make a lot more sense in just a second. One thing I did want to show was I went ahead and I created a getting automated document extraction schema tool. And so basically what this is I took the documentation from OpenAI's site and I passed it in to create my own little chatbot that should hopefully help you create your structured output schema, so that way you can go ahead and pass that into OpenAI. With this, it's not perfect, but it worked a lot better than what the normal ChatGPT did, because the knowledge cutoff for this was before the actual feature was released. And so by adding the documentation into this, it's able to then go ahead and kind of enhance its knowledge cutoff date with the documentation from OpenAI's website to go ahead and produce better results. And so let me flip to this different tab and I can show you what this looks like. I went ahead and did this for the shipping label. And basically what it does is it goes ahead and it creates that schema here where it says the name, the JSON schema, the schema types, what it expects it to be, whether it's a string or a null. And then it goes ahead and has some nested values as well, which we'll get into. But basically, it creates a whole schema for you based on what you want to do. And then from there, you can go ahead and use that in your own workflow. And it's really easy to get started with. You go ahead and you can click on something like this. It's going to go ahead and give you some instructions on how to actually start. And it's going to tell you, you have to provide the document type in of what you're looking for. And then from there, it'll go ahead and create a schema. Again, it may not be perfect, but it should be pretty close and something that you can go ahead and debug based on this and OpenAI's actual documentation. All right, and then let's go ahead and we'll jump to the workflow. So what I have here is I've got two different triggers. I've got a Google Drive trigger and I've got a test workflow trigger. For the demo, I'll go ahead and just use the test workflow trigger, but this should work in the same way where when you add a file to a specific folder within Google Drive, it will go ahead and actually trigger this. And so this is good for more of your kind of actually event-driven automations, whereas when you're actually building this out and testing it, the test workflow button works really well. And so basically what's happening here is we've got a couple different toggles that we go ahead and set. The first one being use OpenAI Vision. So OpenAI provides what's called a vision model. And essentially what that is it goes ahead and you can provide it a JPEG in, and it will go ahead and it will be able to look at the actual contents of the document and extract data from it. And so in our case, we're using PDFs. And so with PDFs, we need to go ahead and convert each page to a JPEG to be able to actually use it. And so what this toggle does is if you don't want to actually go ahead and use the Vision API for some of the extraction, what you can do is you can set this to false, and then it will go ahead and it will actually extract the text from the PDF using n8n's built-in text extraction functionality, and go ahead and just use that as opposed to the Vision API that goes ahead and actually does the extraction using, again, OpenAI's model. One thing to note with the Vision API is that it's much better at extracting data from tables. Typically tables and other unstructured data within PDFs is difficult for your traditional kind of scraping or extraction tooling to handle. And so anything that has a complex structure to it, I would highly recommend using the Vision API over using the kind of text extraction built into n8n. And so basically what happens is we go ahead and we set the extraction method. We go ahead and we say what we want to actually pass in. So in this case, I'm passing in a sample PDF. This is checking to make sure it is in fact a PDF file. And so it'll go ahead and it'll check that it is a PDF file. And then from there, whether or not we set that to true or false is going to determine the path that it takes. So what I have here is I've got a PDFRest convert PDF to image. And so as I was talking about, OpenAI for their Vision API takes a JPEG in as an input, but PDF files are not JPEGs. And so what we need to do is we need to go and take each page from the JPEG or from the PDF and go ahead and convert it to a JPEG. And so this PDFRest service is one that I've used before, I've had pretty good experiences with, and it allows you to go ahead and convert PDFs to images. And so it's just a simple API call. There is a free plan that goes ahead and watermarks your documents, but there's a paid plan as well. It's pretty cost effective. I want to say it's around $0.01 a document, so really not bad. But go ahead and check them out. This is not the only tool that does this, but this is the tool that I used for this specific demo. You could go ahead and plug and play any tool you wanted to into this that goes ahead and actually takes the PDF and converts them to images. So we go ahead and we do that. Basically, you just pass in the document data. That document data comes from my Google Drive field where I'm outputting the file to the document data. And then from there, what it's doing is it's actually creating image blocks. And so I'll show you what this is doing in a second, but basically what's happening is when you go ahead and you make your call to OpenAI, you need to go ahead and pass in each image in its own code block to OpenAI for the actual image detection and data extraction. And so we'll go ahead and we'll pull this up. And there's a reason I'm not using the built-in OpenAPI or OpenAI API node. The reason being I was not having successful results using the classifying image or built-in functionality within n8n with it. And so I went ahead and just used an HTTP call to actually do this. I'll go ahead and I'll provide the template for this so that way you don't have to go ahead and mess around with any of this. But basically what it does is it goes ahead and it goes and says, hey, go ahead and determine what type of document this actually is. And so the options are invoice, resume, or shipping label. And then if it's not any of those, it'll actually say, hey, it's none of those. And so for that reason, we'll go ahead and stop the process. And you can see that I'm also doing the response format here from the structured output page, where basically I'm saying, hey, it needs to be one of these 4 options: invoice, resume, shipping label, or unknown. And what's nice about this is I then have 4 valid options that I can then go and handle accordingly depending on what document type is passed in. And again, this does not need to be limited to PDFs, but for this, I just specifically picked PDFs to work with. So we've got that, we're passing the model. I'm using 4.0 mini, should be totally fine. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit more so this is a little bit easier to see. But yeah, so we're going and passing this all in. And then from there, what's actually happening is we've got a switch here. And what the switch does is it goes ahead and, depending on the result type, it's going to go ahead and if it's an invoice, pass it to this schema. If it's a resume, pass it to this schema. And if it's a shipping label, pass it to this schema. And so each one of these will look very similar in terms of kind of the outline of what it looks like. But you'll notice that I have an invoice schema here. And so this has specific information about invoices. And if I go and I go to the resume extraction one, you'll see that there's going to be different stuff here as well. So like full name, email address, LinkedIn profile, GitHub, all of that. And so each one of these has a different schema, but other than that should operate relatively similarly. And so that's actually what this GPT does is it goes ahead and provides this schema that I can then go pass in, but just by copying and pasting it into my actual node. So I would paste it in right here. And then from there, I'm able to actually then kind of have that structured output that I expect. And so the reason why this structured output really matters is because when you're actually going ahead and writing it to the actual Google Sheet, which I'll show you in just a second, what you need to do is you need to be able to go and actually index into that. And so while this looks complicated, once I run it, you'll see it's actually pretty easy to go ahead and just take the actual columns and drag them over here. But basically what's happening is it is going ahead and it's looking at the message content from OpenAI, and it's going ahead and pulling out like the invoice number, the invoice date, the due date, from address, from email, to name. And it's going to do it on a best effort basis. So if that information does not exist in the document, it'll just be blank, which is fine. But if it does, it'll go ahead and populate that and then go ahead and store that in an actual extraction spreadsheet. And so what I did as part of this process was I actually asked ChatGPT to provide me with the CSVs or CSV headers as well. So that way I could go ahead and map this easily. And it goes ahead and it provided all the CSV headers that I just went and got and then actually put into different documents sheets here within Google Sheets. So I've got invoices, I've got shipping labels, and I've got resumes. And so we'll go ahead and we'll run it for the invoice. And so we'll zoom out and let's go ahead and test it. And so you can see here, it went ahead. This actually converts stuff to images. I'll go ahead and show you that in just a second. OpenAI is doing its extraction. Takes a second. The Vision model is a little slower than the other models, but still pretty quick. And so let me kind of highlight some areas of interest here. So this PDFRest gives me an actual output URL for the image that I actually went and passed in. So if I actually go to this, it'll go ahead and download it for me. And this is the actual file that I went ahead and passed in, just a sample PDF of an invoice that I found online. And so if we flip back, it gives me that URL, and then I can go ahead and I will take that URL and I'll actually then go ahead and actually pass that in where it creates the code block. And so let me show you that in just a second. So in the document identification in here, we will see where the code block is being referenced. So you can see right here, this type image URL, and it's passing in that actual URL that I just generated from my PDFRest to go ahead and pass it into GPT-4o Mini for it to determine what the actual result is. So if I close out of this, what you'll notice is my context here. It says document type is invoice. It's got a confidence score of 95. Detected keywords, it goes ahead and tells it that. Invoice, total due, invoice number. Yeah, those are things that you would expect to see in an invoice. And then it says why it thinks it's an invoice. And the document clearly displays the word invoice at the top. So yeah, that checks out. And then what will happen is it goes ahead and it checks, since it is an invoice type, which we can see here, it is. It will then go and actually kick it over to this where it goes and actually extracts that information. So let me go ahead and I'll flip back to my Google Sheet, and you'll see that now I have all that information in there. And so I can see who it's from, what the from address is, from email to all of the stuff that I would expect to. And all of this is super flexible. You can go ahead and design your sheet however you want to, as long as it aligns with the schema that you provided OpenAI to actually get your data. And so go ahead and use it as you'd like. But basically, yeah, you're able to kind of modify this as you want to. Again, I've got one for shipping labels that looks a little bit different. I've got one for resumes as well. You could have 20, 30, 50, 100 different document types that you are able to parse with this, just depending on kind of how you build up the logic with an n8n. And so with this, I'll also show real quick that we can do this without Vision. So let me go ahead and we'll flip back over. So we go to false, great, let me save it. And then what this will do is instead of going down this path here, it'll go ahead and kick it up to extract the text from the PDF as well using n8n's built-in version. There still is a document identification process with this, but instead of passing in an image, it actually passes in the raw text from this extraction node. So you can see all of the extracted information. It did a pretty good job here, but again, your mileage may vary depending on the PDF type and the contents of it. So just go ahead and kind of test case by case. But yeah, it'll go ahead then and same thing. It's gonna go ahead and determine, hey, it's an invoice for the same reasons. It's gonna go ahead and process it. And I don't believe we're actually seeing a new entry because I have set in here match on invoice number, and the invoice number should be the same, and so it is. So let me go ahead and delete this out. We'll rerun it one more time just to make sure to show you that the non-OpenAI version, at least for text extraction, is working as expected. And we'll see in just a second when we flip back to that sheet that it should be in there. And there it is. Awesome. And so yeah, so we've got options here. Again, you can do it with resumes. I'll go ahead and let me go ahead and pass in a resume file. This is an old resume that I had. Let me go ahead and run it. Right now, it's going to go ahead and actually go through the non-OpenAI version, which is fine. And then in there in a second, we should go ahead and we should see the resume output be written to the sheet. Again, takes a little bit longer. This is actually 2 images that I passed in. This resume version was 2 pages, so I guess I wanted to test that out. And in here, we can see my resume in here and all the information about prior roles and everything else. So that's all in there. Again, shipping labels works the same way. You could get as wild as you want to with different routing rules and have kind of similar setup to this, but this is a really, really effective or cost-effective way to go ahead and actually extract data from PDF files and other document types. That's way more cost-effective than most of the APIs and tools that I see out there that are charging 10, 20, 50 cents a document, when this a lot of times will cost a penny or two to do the entire thing. which brings us nicely back to the actual presentation where I can go over kind of the cost around this. So cost of this, at least right now, is around 2 cents a document. With that, it's probably even less. I did this calculation using GPT-4o. I'm using 4o mini for the actual identification of the document, and then I'm using 4o for the actual text extraction. Identification is a pretty easy task, and so 4o mini works really well. For extraction, I found better results with 4o, not mini, but that's something, again, that you can go ahead and change pretty easily, depending on kind of what your thoughts are and kind of how your own workflow performs and whether you can get away with mini for the extraction as well. So something like this saves you a ton of time and a ton of money, not having to actually do the extraction yourself. And really all this can be done really easily from just setting up something like a Google Drive folder that you go ahead and just drop documents into or add them into from your email. And so that's what that actual trigger in here is I have a document data extraction folder in Google Drive that if I were to put a document in there, it'll go ahead and automatically process the document type and pass it all through. The one thing that you would do differently is you would actually go ahead and instead of passing in the file here from list, you would actually take the ID from right here and then pass it into that. But really a pretty simple change to go ahead and actually have that be a more automated process for you to activate this and have it run automatically when files are added. So yeah, highly cost effective, really big time saver, and something that just about everyone struggles with. And as we get more data and more information, we're gonna have a way to go ahead and actually save and aggregate that, especially for your small and medium-sized businesses that don't maybe have the advanced tools or systems to do that for them automatically. All right, so why does this matter? The reason I think this matters is, again, this is a problem that everyone faces. It's a problem that no one likes to deal with. Data extraction, data input is not sexy, never will be, never has been. The less people do, the more that they can be focusing their time on something that is actually more kind of business value driving than data extraction. And so with something like this, if you had a large data set or a large amount of files that you wanted to process, you could go ahead and drop them all in at one time. It would work through each file, and then you could have maybe 1,000 invoices processed in a really short time that would have otherwise taken a long time to go ahead and actually aggregate those and extract the information and record them, and could be error prone. And so something like this just makes a lot of sense for all the different documents and data that businesses are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so yeah, freeing up your workers to actually do something that is less mundane than this, I'm sure they'll appreciate it just as you will. So that wraps up kind of the document extraction case. I think it speaks for itself. And again, I think it's highly cost effective. And that's something that I really want to continue to drive. I consider this as being one of the kind of more basics of my videos, where I'm trying to take a simple problem and break it down and make automation accessible with. So hopefully this checked the box. If there's more things that you want to see along this line, let me know. I'm happy to make more videos like this. I think this is a use case that, again, makes sense for just about everyone. On that note, what I'm doing is, for those who are unaware, I am starting a community. It is looking to launch January 1st. 2025 will be the year that you automate your business. And so with this, what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to go ahead and create a community of 250 really dedicated builders. This is not a get rich quick community. This is not a here's how to make $10,000 in your first month. This is a community for people who want to roll up their sleeves, learn about automation, and actually do something tangible with it, either in their business, in someone else's business, just really going and actually implementing automation that is real, that solves real problems on a daily basis. And so with this, I'll go ahead and I'll be providing one-on-one training sessions. I'll also be providing different demos and walkthroughs and content that generally isn't a great fit for YouTube, but really for your avid automator will be a fantastic fit, and kind of teach them how to take really basic automations and level them up to kind of automate entire workflows. And so I'm really excited about this. Go ahead to my website and sign up for a pre-registration. I'll go ahead and I'll keep you posted in the coming weeks about what to expect, when to join, what it will entail, and more details are coming soon. So that's all I've got for today. I just want to say thank you so much for watching to this point. If this is interesting to you, please go ahead and like, subscribe, go ahead and ring the bell. It all means the world to me. It's what is keeping me posting these videos and continuing to try and give back to this community. I love this stuff. I'm really passionate about it. As you can tell by my sweatshirt, I was actually at AWS reInvent last week. I just love the automation and orchestration space, and I want to go ahead and make it more available to everyone, specifically those small and medium-sized business owners and automators alike. So reach out to me, go ahead and schedule time with me, shoot me an email, subscribe to my newsletter. This is something I'll be doing for a long time, and I'm really excited about it. So thank you for coming along on this journey, and great luck automating.